Hello and welcome to our new podcast on universal consent and autonomy and more. I'm an individual anarchist and I'm all about universal consent and autonomy. Interestingly, these are also central topics of the contemporary left. Consent and autonomy in sexual spheres most prominently, but the social sphere in general, one might say, social sphere being personal relationships. Think of Burning Man or sex positive parties. And I think that's great. I love this as an individual anarchist. But when it comes to other things, this love for consent and autonomy seems to fade quickly. Or at least it is not so clearly visible anymore. And let's make this position strong when we consider it, as strong as we can. Let's consider the best intending, caring, warm-hearted, authentic, non-authoritarian neo-leftist or woke folks. And there are some great people among them, and also myself. What could be reasons that such loving, good people who are all about consent and autonomy in one sphere, the social sphere, personal relationships at least, seemingly give up upon these in another sphere and want control there, extreme control, most prominently the economic sphere? One reason could be they feel weak, powerless, incompetent in the economic sphere and strong, powerful, competent in the social sphere. Or they maybe care about those who are weak, powerless, incompetent in the economic sphere. And they are afraid that in the economic sphere, not controlling it leads to manipulation, exploitation, being controlled. Most prominently, there's this typical leftist worry about being manipulated by advertisement, and in the worst kind, being manipulated without being even aware of it. This would be in favor of this thesis. But do leftists really feel socially competent and economically incompetent? Is that plausible? Almost. And why would they only care about the socially strong and economically weak and not equally about what's maybe the cliche conservative who is socially weak but economically strong or competent? Would the conservative or the alt-right conservative usually want more autonomy economically and control socially because for them it's inversed? And where then would libertarians and anarchists fit into this picture? Do they not care? Do they feel they're strong in both domains, or do they simply not get it? Or all of it? Maybe we need to dig a bit deeper to understand what's the difference between the social and the economical sphere. For sure, the economical is more transactional, the social sphere more non-transactional, at least en gros. That is presumably the mark. Caring, close personal relationships, and more transactional, uncaring relationships. One could say in one sphere, I care about the other, in the other, I don't. So then, is a neo-leftist afraid of the latter, the economical, the transactional, where there is no care for the others and no love in relationships? Do they believe here? Will things go wrong economically if it's not firmly controlled? If that's the case, economical education should prove sufficient to resolve this fear, build trust in market processes, and give up the wish to control. However, this hardly ever happens. We usually don't see even smart leftists learning about economy and changing their opinion. Or is it a type of person who doesn't get this? But let's be considerate and not think our opponent is just stupid. We shall come back to this thought with some input from Alex, the other one who gives this podcast, and hopefully a member of these authentic, non-authoritarian leftists can help us understand this better at some point in the future. Would be lovely to welcome one of them here in the podcast to bring more light on this matter. Well, another thing that's interesting to notice is that way more leftists are women, or way more women are leftists and more men are right. And typically, the right and left is also paraphrased in toxic masculine terms or toxic feminine terms. So this might be an interesting framework to follow. I think that we can describe many of our relationships in terms of motherly and fatherly love, at least the relationships where we care. And in that sense, could maybe say the left socialist is more about keeping everyone a bit from reality, protected, right? welfare state ideas. You kind of have a cushion to fall on. And the right, more like this face reality and of this brutal kind of in your face. Maybe to give an example, parents have a son in the hospital and he's incredibly sick and they learn that he dies within 6 months. Fatherly love would be to go in there and say, son, you're going to die in 6 months. Pull yourself together, face reality, make the best of it. So the father would do that in a loving way, thinking it's better for the son to face it. The mother, on the other hand, might keep all the pain for herself and try to keep the son away from this brutal reality, not tell him, like kind of guard him from this reality, like shield him from the pain of the real world. There's no right or wrong way. And at times we need one or the other, or some of both. When we think of the hospital and the son that dies in 6 months, there's potential problems with both overly motherly love and fatherly love. The fatherly love might be brutal and unforgiving and might be too bleak, cold world without compassion. But the motherly love bears the risk of not facing reality and thinking there's no risk, that there's nothing wrong, kind of making the system overall too fragile. It's avoiding reality. It's like when you're employed, people think that it is the more safe option, but actually it's the more unsafe option because you suppress volatility in the system. And then you only get the unforeseen big black swan event where you maybe get fired, where things break down and you just didn't see these small changes. You didn't get feedback about reality and could adjust to it. For society as a whole, the welfare state, that can mean you don't see when things go wrong. You can't adjust to it. And you're just creating a much bigger problem in the end. If you would be able to adjust to that volatility and the risks one by one, you could steer it and learn from it. And you would see the warning signals early enough to react to it. So this is an inherent big risk with the leftist socialist position, with the welfare state. Too much motherly love. And that's maybe a way to understand the political debate or mainstream discourse. And in this sense also, there hasn't been much change since we had tribal structures and kings and with democracy now. Because in both the king scenario and democracy, we keep each other in a state of infantilization, immaturity, or ascribe immaturity to one another. I guess we can, as a picture, metaphor, take children going to a kindergarten, and the king version would be there's 20 children at a kindergarten, and there's one mother and father, parents that take care of them and decide. Democracy is, well, there's one pair of parents looking after everyone, but if the majority, here 11 children, choose another pair of parents, if they are too bad, we can switch to other parents. And that might be a small incremental progress, but it's still the same kind of game we play. And while this might not be bad for children, even though we might think everyone having their own parents might be in a way more resilient, anti-fragile, to speak in Taleb's terms, because if those one parents make a terrible mistake, everything breaks. Well, if there's many, some will do something good, some will do something wrong, and for the whole of the civilization, in a way, evolutionarily for all of society, this seems to be better for surviving and having success as a whole. So in that way, we can conceive of the mainstream political discourse for many thousand years as being about infantilization. So while the more left-leaning folks suggest we should choose more the mother looking after everyone, or the more right-leaning folks call more for fatherly love. With the state, we kind of never leave having parents behind. We kind of still have other parents. You can think of two reasons why people do that. For one thing, they might choose that for themselves. Well, I want to have that mother guiding me, I want to have that father guiding me. On the other hand, it's choosing for others, saying, well, those others are so immature we need to choose parents for them. Even though they left home, this mainstream politics idea hold. So we are always parented, and the word paternalism already captures that idea, or calling Angela Merkel Mutti is a nice, cute word for mother. There cannot be the worry that many people are truly too immature to leave parents behind and to even choose their own parents. Of course, you can also say, as a mature person, I want to choose parents. We will choose mentors, for example, or I don't leave everyone behind. But of course, the big question is, am I mature enough? And is it dangerous if many people leave? The idea is they need parents, otherwise civilization breaks, right? They do stupid things. People just, I don't know, even kill each other. But even if it's not that extreme, it's like kind of not a good idea. They hurt themselves and things just go terribly wrong if they don't have parents. And you could ask, well, why can't everyone choose their parents? And you could say, well, they're so immature, they're not able to choose those parents. You could even think, of course, I myself am maybe mature and could leave everyone behind. But if I did that, the whole construct would fall apart. And now libertarians or anarchists, they want to break that. They want to unlock complete autonomy. So maybe for themselves, they're like, okay, I'm not willing to submit to parents. I'm mature. I think I'm mature. And of course, this is in a way a hard fatherly step almost, right? Confronting reality brutally, directly, going out in the world and having to bear all the consequences, being responsible for all one's actions. And that might go terribly wrong, but it's also an opportunity for autonomy. Maybe this whole system keeps us in a way infantile, right? We never have the chance to really grow, mature people. So give them the chance. And a big question is, of course, well, would that go terribly wrong, right? So first, is it okay if some mature people leave that structure to be autonomous, truly self-determined? And is it an option on a wider spectrum? And something that one could say in favor is not only the mentioned anti-fragility or at least resilience, because if we have many parents or people doing things differently, more decentralized in a way, at least more resilient than people, maybe even grow from disruptions or black swan events when things go wrong really bad that we can't predict. Some people get stronger from this as an opportunity, while others, of course, will make worse decisions. But for the whole, it will be better. And maybe you could even say, if you have many people autonomously doing different things, then you can learn from the successful and copy them. And maybe it's better for everyone. One really great thing that the woke neo-leftist movement accomplished, I think, or push, is making psychological education mainstream and creating a culture where people work through their shade, where they grow and mature and take time to mature. And maybe there's a hope that more people will be mature enough to just choose their own parents or live completely autonomous. I guess the foremost question is, do we really want, as a well-meaning humanist, forbid people to leave parents behind, especially parents that the majority of the group has chosen? It is an open question. You could say that would be great. But if we do that on large scale, society will still fall apart. The whole structure needs those mature people to stay in the society for it to continue, and allowing a lot of immature people to become completely autonomous or choose their parents, is like opening up the box of Pandora. And some terrible disasters, maybe like the big disasters at the beginning of the last century, where religion broke down and masses followed horrendous leaders who pushed for new ideologies, unleashing terror and horror that hasn't been seen before. I like framing the discussion or the libertarian anarchist position as the idea to leave the mainstream political stance of we need infantilization behind, by at least being able to or allowed to choose your own parents, or to leave them completely behind and live a self-determined, autonomous life, which would presumably still mean you choose your own mentors. But in the end, you're then your own parents, maybe for the first time in history, part of a human group, so then allowed to test their maturity and to be truly without parents. Nowadays, there's just a few big parents, more and more centralized over the world, a few poles of parental power. in a very fragile system. I would be curious, what's your thoughts on this? Should some mature people be allowed to leave society, to leave their parents behind? Should everyone be allowed to leave society? Do you think most people are mature enough to choose their parents? What's your prediction? Will this end in chaos or more beautiful, prosperous, exciting tomorrow? Do you think the current state maybe even contributes to many people being more infantile, immature than they would need to be? Do you see more opportunity or more risk? Do you see opportunity in honoring people's wishes, not keeping them somewhere where they don't want to be? Do you see potential in people autonomously trying new things and you being able to learn both from the successes but also failures and mistakes people make? Or will this end in chaos? Thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to hear your responses and ideas about this.